All right, the warden's given me 1 hour of yard time to showcase the Viltrox 50mm f2 prime lens for the Sony E Mount. Now this is the new Air lens, which gives you a 50mm focal length, fast f2.0 aperture without the expensive price tag. This comes in at $199 at the time of release. And I think after testing it, I shoot this part last. After testing it today, it's performed really well. So if you're a video shooter on a budget, I can highly recommend this. We're gonna test it up against the more expensive Viltrox 50mm f1.8 and the Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8, so you can get a good sense of how this compares. Let's get into it. Let me show you what we get in the box. Ooh. All right, we get a warranty card. You can download the instructions by scanning the QR code. We get a nice microfiber carry bag for the lens, which is always a great touch. There's a tasty treat included. Don't eat these. And we get the lens. Here it is. Man, this is tiny. This is slightly bigger than the 25mm f1.7 Panasonic Micro Four Thirds lens. So it's physically wider because of the lens mount, but this is very small and it feels about the same in terms of build quality. So first impressions is the focus ring feels great. The lens hood clicks into place nicely. There's a front lens cap, which clicks in beautifully as well, and a rear lens cap here with the USB-C port on the back for updating the firmware. We get a 58mm front filter thread here, and overall the build quality feels great. Now this is a full frame lens, but you can of course use it on cameras like the A6700 or Sony FX30 with a 1.5 times crop. All right, let me run you through a few of the specs, and you're looking at the Viltrox 50mm f2 Air lens right now on the Sony ZV-E1. So this lens is super light, coming in at only 205 grams, which translates out to 7.2 ounces. Super lightweight. We get 13 elements in 9 groups, and we get a minimum focusing distance of 51 centimeters, which translates out to 20.1 inches. The aperture range will go anywhere between f2 and f16, and you'll need to control all of this via your camera because there's no aperture control on the lens itself. Speaking of which, there's also no manual focus, autofocus switch on there anywhere. So if you want to switch over to manual focus, you'll need to do that via your camera. Now let's quickly talk about 50mm lenses in general and why you might want one if you're new to videography or photography. 50mm can pretty much do everything. Anytime I shoot a short film, 50mm is my preferred focal length. It's just a really versatile focal length that can give you excellent subject separation and background blur without having to step too far back. And this is one of the cool things about it. Now, if you're a photographer, the Nifty 50 is known as just a general purpose lens because it gives you an excellent look. And again, you can use it in any sort of situation, from product shots to portraits to just general street photography. And it just gives you a really premium look overall. And for $199, I'm keen to see whether or not this stacks up against the more expensive Viltrox. So let's switch it over. And now you're looking at the 50mm f2 prime lens. This is the new Air lens at f2. So is there a huge difference? I'm sure there's plenty of birds running around behind me right now, but this should give you a great indication of just what the difference is between this and the more expensive Viltrox lens that I was using before. So let us know what you think between this A-B comparison. We're going to test the autofocus in just a moment, but I just want to show you an A-B comparison while the lighting was still the same. And now we're over to one of my favorite lenses of all time, the Sony Zeiss 55mm f1.8. I'm at f2 with this, and while the field of view is slightly different, this is the closest lens I have that's native to Sony to the ones we're testing out today. So I'm just going to put this on screen and show you the difference in terms of the overall look. Now, thankfully, the lighting looks basically the same still. I am outdoors, so it could change, but I'll give you a split screen between the other lenses while I waffle on for just a moment or two. Welcome to Australia's version of The Dugout. I just wanted to quickly talk about value for money. So overall, so far so good. This lens represents excellent value for money. The image quality looks great. I've had a look back at some of my files already, and I'm very impressed with how it renders the scene. I couldn't see too much of a difference between the more expensive Viltrox lens in terms of image quality, but there's always a compromise. Do you want the autofocus, manual focus switch? Do you want an aperture ring and so forth? So you got to make your mind up whether or not the weight compromise is there. Again, I think this lens is best suited for someone who might be doing any sort of travel or street photography where you don't want to carry a big honking lens with you. All right, let's do an autofocus test. This is with the speed and sensitivity both cranked. I have eye detection enabled. I can see the little box here. I'm going to jump out of frame, jump back in. It looks like it's super snappy, very fast as well. Let's see how well it tracks me as I move backwards here. And now I'm just going to blast towards the camera and see whether or not it looks like it's working. On the selfie screen, it looks all good, but I'll comment on this in post-production or put an annotation here if something doesn't look right. But odds are the autofocus is going to be great. Now that's with the speed and sensitivity basically maxed out. I just thought I'd start there. A lot of people say, turn up the speed and sensitivity. So this is with it maxed out. Now, I don't often love a really snappy focus pull. I like a little bit more of a cinematic focus pull, but if you like your autofocus to be super responsive, this is with it set to +6 and +4. Let us know what you think. The Sony E1 also gives us a product showcase mode. So if you're doing like an unboxing thing on your channel, this is the kind of result you can get if you're using a camera with this particular mode. So as I hold this up, it switches instantly and then goes back to me, goes back to the phone, goes back to me, goes back to the phone. So no problems at all when it comes to using it for product showcase. Another huge benefit to this lens is it has near no focus breathing. So if you're pulling focus from minimum to infinity focus, either in autofocus or manual focus mode, you're not going to see the sides of frame zoom in and out. Now, this isn't compatible with Sony's proprietary focus breathing compensation, but optically this lens is excellent. I can't see any sort of focus breathing in the frame, and I've watched back a few of these tests already. Secondly, it also is very confident when it hits the background. There's no second guessing or jumping around to land focus on the background. It just finds it, and that's awesome. This is really cool. That can also be one of those things that some third-party lenses don't do very well, is find infinity focus, and it's doing a really great job. If you own this Sony E1, then you're probably familiar with auto framing. I'm going to test that out right now with the medium crop. So this should be tracking me in the frame here. I've done a few tests with this off camera, and it's worked really well. So you can set how much you want it to crop in, but this is on the medium setting, and it's just going to track me as I move around the frame. And whether or not it keeps up is up to the speed options within this menu. But I'm just going to test it out with the medium crop with the default settings here and see what kind of results we get. As I move back, you'll start to see it sort of punch in, jitter around a bit, and then kind of settle. It's just the way that it works, but it does a pretty good job. And it's great to see that these features also work with third-party lenses. The sun's disappeared, but we're going to try some more photography here and some cinematic video, or at least the cinematic mode on the camera. Let's check it out. Stopping all the way down to f10, everything is in focus, well almost, and it's nice and sharp. Now these frogs are about 1.5 feet tall, maybe 2 feet or something like that. And I just thought I'd get low to the ground and try to isolate the subject, and this lens does a really great job. Here's a second shot with a bit of a different perspective. Given the price of this lens, I thought there'd be a compromise in terms of sharpness, but even with a low megapixel sensor, I'm still very happy with the end result. This is shot at f2. Here's a quick sharpness comparison again between f2 and f16. As you can see, stopping down increases the sharpness, especially in the corners, but that would be expected. It's a lot harder to check for chromatic aberration when it's overcast like this, but I can't really see any in this shot. There might be a hair of purple fringing in here, but definitely nothing to worry about. If you're a wedding videographer or someone who wants to shoot a short film, the manual focus experience is excellent. I shot these clips here all using manual focus at different aperture values using the cinematic vlog mode on the ZV-E1, which I actually like. So these are superimposed black bars here, but overall I think the quality of the image speaks for itself. Let's wrap this up. I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this nifty 50 from Viltrox, and this has been an absolute pleasure to pair with this ZV-E1. So if you've got one of these cameras, or even something like an A6700 or any other small form factor camera, it's a really great match. And if you want to travel light or do any sort of street photography with a small sort of compact form factor, this makes a whole lot of sense. The second 50mm lens I tried from Viltrox was this one right here. This is the 50mm f1.8, and it features an aperture ring and a slightly more premium feeling focus ring. So if those things are important to you, this is still a really great choice. The 55mm Zeiss looked almost indistinguishable from the rest. This does give you a slightly less sort of busy background or bokeh than you'll find on the AF 50mm over here. That's probably my only criticism of it. In a few of the shots, it did look a little bit swirly and busy in the background. But again, for the price and its performance, it's excellent. Now, $200, you got a lens that can give you excellent autofocus for video. You can do talking headshots like this, and you're going to get excellent results out of this. And it was a pleasure to use. The manual focus experience was great. I love the fact that it's a very common sort of front filter thread here. And if you do or don't want to use the lens cap, you can reduce the physical visible size of it nice and simply. So this is a great choice for photography and video work. I think if you're a YouTuber on a budget or someone who wants to get a 50mm lens, maybe for a second angle or a talk to camera lens like this is a 35mm. So it would crop in to somewhere around here and it would give me a really great look in the studio. Don't be too concerned with, f1.8 versus f2. There's not a lot in it unless you're shooting in extreme low light where you will notice a slight difference. But overall, I'm very impressed with this. The handling and ergonomics of it are great. I only really found myself missing a manual focus, autofocus switch. That's the one thing that I use all the time as a video shooter. I like to get into manual focus mode, and with this camera at least not having just a dedicated clutch on the back like some of my others, yeah, it's sort of a bit of a bummer. I'm always reaching for the lens switch, which it doesn't have. But again, if you can live with that, I think this is an excellent choice. Now, the other lens I used in this video was this one right here, the Viltrox 16mm f1.8 FE. Now, this was the super wide angle that you saw at the start. It's one of my favorite lenses from Viltrox. If you want to check out that review, I'll link it up in the cards. Thanks for watching.